In the first 10 days of 2026, 4 people reportedly died in ICE custody. In 2025, 31 people died in ICE custody, according to Detention Watch Network, an all-time high, if that number is accurate, though fewer, 18 in custody deaths were documented in the ICE report for fiscal year 2025. Many are outraged by the recent killing of Renee Good at the hands of an ICE officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota, this month. Sadly, she is not the first to die due to ICE operations, and if nothing changes, she will not be the last. As a U.S. civilian, though I am a natural-born citizen, I don't know a lot about what goes on at ICE detention centers, but I know enough. I know enough about our history and our present to be aware that the murder of Renee Good, a white mother in Minneapolis, is sadly more visible than it is unique. That's not to take anything away from how tragic it still is. It's just not unique. Collective grief is piling onto the American psyche like lake effect snow, which we've been getting a lot of these days. Today, I just want to reflect on the idea of grief and what it might be able to teach us. Grief is never easy. We all go through it. It's part of the human experience. And in my personal life, recently, grief has been inescapable. Not only have I been grieving for the countless souls lost this year alone to war and just everything that's been happening around the world and in my own country. There's famines, there's wars, there's political cruelty and abuse, but also in my own family, there has been loss. And I recently attended a funeral for my great aunt Karen, my grandmother's sister, who was someone who we weren't super close. Like, I didn't talk to her every day, but I remember she would usually be among the group of aunts and my great grandma who would call me on my birthday almost every year since I was a child, and they would sing to me and they would be in harmony, and it was this beautiful little thing that they would do. And even after my great grandma passed, my aunt Karen and my aunt Patience, they kind of kept it up, and they were still singing, even though my aunt Karen's voice was raspy at the time because she'd been very sick. She was very important to me and to a lot of people in my family, and it hurts to let her go. She taught me about fashion, relationships, and authenticity. She taught me how to brew wine in my bedroom, which maybe I didn't need to know, but thanks, Aunt Karen. One of the last days that I got to actually sit and spend time with my aunt in person was Christmas 2004. And I got to go over to my cousin's house, her daughter's house. And I just remember being so happy to be able to spend time with them. And I remember all the food that she had made a bunch of food and she was preparing it all. And she's just this tiny person. She had cancer. And so she was very frail looking. And everybody was telling her to sit down and she wouldn't sit down. Anyways, she said to me on that day, "You have a lovely personality. Turn up the volume a little." She added a warning about how my silence might be mistaken for weakness. I remember my grandma at the time, her sister, was like, "Don't listen to her. Just be yourself. Don't worry about that." Thanks, Grandma. But I also didn't forget that. Her words stuck with me. And my aunt was known for her blunt personality. This definitely wasn't the worst thing that she'd ever said in my presence. Certainly not the worst thing that she could have said to me. But I kind of felt a way about it for a while. And although I knew she meant well, I held on to this piece of advice like a thorn in my shoe for the next year or so. Thought, how can I turn up the volume on being a quiet person? You know, I've always perceived myself as being a certain way. I thought of myself as shy for a while, and then I ditched that and I said, I'm just introverted. I'm soft-spoken. I'm more of a listener, less of a talker. I don't like to be loud. These are the things I would tell myself and believe as true. And most of the people in my life just affirmed that vision that I had of myself. But my aunt's words poked at the seams of my carefully stitched persona, and I tried to dismiss them at first. I, had been given that nice reframe from my grandma, which was good advice. My grandma said, be yourself. I still think that's good advice. I just kind of told myself that my aunt probably just wanted me to be more like her. And after she passed, I thought, while I was remembering all of the memories that I was able to create with her, grateful to be able to create with her, I realized that it'd be nice to be more like her. My aunt was bold. She said what she thought, and she didn't let other people's opinions about her define her, reshape her vision of herself. And she was loud, and sometimes she was crude, but she was always honest, at least from my perspective and in her own words. She was generous and compassionate. She showed me conviction can be loving, and that strength and leadership can be feminine. And she loved me. She never told me not to be myself, even that day on Christmas. In essence, she was telling me to be myself in a bigger way, to share more of what she knew I had to share, and shine the light that she could already see within me. Perhaps I could have come to this conclusion regardless if she'd stayed and if I'd had more chances to spend more time with her. But it didn't hit me until she was gone. And the truth stings a little, knowing that I could only see it through the lens of grief. But the grief made my heart open to a new perspective. I started to question the way I've shown up in relationships with my aunt, but also with other people in my life. And I've started to ask myself, have I been fully living, fully enjoying the brief time that I get to be here on this earth, to share this space on this planet, fully showing up as myself in every moment? Sometimes grief is like a magnifying glass. It forces you to take a closer look at everything. While grieving the loss of Keith Porter Jr., a Black man who was killed by an off-duty ICE agent in Los Angeles on New Year's Eve last year, I began to take a closer look at ICE. I realized that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, known as ICE, was never really intended to fairly enforce immigration law. It couldn't have been, because it was created from its inception as an institutional response to collective trauma, as an institutional response to grief, collective grief. In 2003, when the agency was formed as part of the Homeland Security Act, which was a large-scale expansion of the Department of Defense, ICE was just one piece of a massive response to the attacks on 9/11. In a 2018 interview with NPR, Bo Cooper, a former general counsel for the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, said, quote,
"In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, there was a view that all the agencies that had Homeland Security responsibilities ought to be gathered under one roof and their missions viewed through that common lens of Homeland Security." End quote.
That was a summarized quote. But Cooper went on to say in that interview that many of the unfavorable features of our immigration policy and law enforcement in this country, like, for example, the way detention centers are run and the laws that dictate who gets put there, are basically beyond the limits of ICE. They're embedded at various levels of a multi-pronged structure or system aimed at the very ambiguous pursuit of homeland security. The problem that we're looking at here is more than political. It is rooted in an institutional effort to cope with a moment of perceived powerlessness or literal powerlessness. We'll save my 9/11 theories for another post, another time. This is not even really a post about trying to share all of the answers, but I will share that I'm just as afraid as I am hopeful. I hope for a better future on the other side of this present, because I know that loss and grief, as undesirable as they are powerful teachers. They call us forward into co-creating the reality we want to see and rejecting anything that fails to support us in living life more abundantly. And so I hope that this moment and every moment of collective grief that we have been experiencing in the last year plus can be an opportunity for us to reflect, learn, and instigate change. As we, the individual people who continue to live in this nation, confront the real grief that comes with living in this nation, in a place that allows senseless deaths to occur and then be justified by political officials or dismissed, and then the killers pardoned by law. The grief that comes with existing in that space. I invite you to approach the following questions with care for yourself and curiosity. Ask yourself, what do I have to grieve? What have I lost or had to let go in 2025? What losses have I witnessed and been affected by? How do I care for myself through grief? And what lessons is my grief trying to show me? I encourage you to book a tuning session with me if you need space to reflect on this post or just to get clarity on any aspect of your personal growth journey. I will leave you with this, a quote from an Instagram post I found by The Fallen Poet. I will tag him or link him somewhere. This post was a collection of Japanese words which allegedly have no direct translation in English. I don't speak Japanese, so I don't know how accurate these are, but I'm just quoting the post because I thought it was beautiful. One of the words was mono no aware, which is translated here as the gentle sadness of knowing everything beautiful is temporary and loving it more because it will not last. Hakanai, which is translated here to mean beautiful because it disappears. Fragility as value, not weakness. I hope you find beauty in the brevity and fragility of your own life today. Peace.